How you feeling this morning, buddy?
Feeling pretty good, man. You said you got a lot of energy.
I didn't stay out that late.
You gotta have a lot of energy to explain why everything that you said last week was incorrect.
Excuse me?
Just looking at the rundown, it's just like, this isn't what we said was gonna happen last
All right,
week.
you know what? Let's just start the show.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome in What's Right, Nick Wright podcast YouTube show, episode number 72. By the way, a quick note for the folks who also watch the TV show. Thanks to the time change of the show to the afternoons and some soccer that's coming up as the World Cup is right around the corner, we actually won't be back on television until Tuesday, which means now is a great time to be checking out the podcast and the YouTube show because it's going to be the first place you can hear my thoughts on this weekend's football. And we, of course, have the gambling show coming out tomorrow. But, DeMonze, I'm fired up for today's show. There's a lot we got to get into. But as we always do, before we get into our lead story, here are the stories that did not make the cut for today's show. First thing we're not discussing is Mayweather-McGregor 2 teased. I might have been interested in that 5 years ago. Mike Evans suspension upheld. I am going to say something on that briefly. It's just ridiculous. First of all, the NFL should have incorporated the fact that he's protecting Tom Brady, which is what they want him to do. Second of all, he didn't throw a punch. Lattimore didn't get hurt. He didn't swing a helmet. You didn't have to suspend him. Third of all, it's America's game of the week, Bucs-Packers. Who was clamoring for Mike Evans to be suspended? Stupid. And on a serious note, looks like Ime Udoka, the coach of your basketball team, DeMonte, is going to be suspended. I read Woj's story. They talk about an inappropriate consensual relationship with a female team employee. The reason we're not talking about that today is I feel like we have about 3% of the information on what is a serious topic. So we're aware of it. And I don't feel comfortable until we get the real information discussing the basketball side of it. Like, what does this mean for the Celtics and all that? So we're aware of it, but we're not going to get into it until there's real deep reporting on it. What we can get into is DeMonte experiencing the third stage of gambling grief. He experienced stage 1 in the Ravens game, betting the right side, already spending the winnings in your head, and then having it stolen from you. Stage 2 was in the Bengals game where he bet the wrong side. It was dead from the very beginning. And I warned you, stage 3 was going to be one of the most painful, where you nail a pick, you have it exactly right, you're talked out of betting it, and then you realize how much money you could have made. So we're starting with the Bills. Go ahead.
I should have heeded your warning.
Yeah.
But the Bills...
You shouldn't have heeded my warning. You did heed my warning of not betting it, and therefore...
Yeah, I feel like if I heeded your warning, you were warning me that I was going to call it and get it directly correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's correct. I did tell you that. You're right about
things
that.
A little bit differently. I feel
No. You're right. But I also warned you not to bet anymore because you lost all that money in week 1, week 2, which by the way, I got something. You owe me a little bit still. It's still a little bit, and the juice starts running after a week. So you got 2 days.
I have to subtract
juice free.
it.
All right, go ahead. Bills.
Days. The Bills blew out the Titans 41-7. Remember, I predicted this on the last pod. They win by 17. They obviously way overachieved.
Yeah.
On first things first, you said that you're still not completely in on the Bills yet. Am I already a better than you, by the way? That's what it kind of seems like.
No, this is beginners. First of all, because you get the Bills game right. I didn't even tell you that I wasn't going to.
Wasn't just the Bills game, but let's.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Are you a Bills hater because you're a Chiefs fan?
All right. So first of all, this is where I'm going to get a little frustrated.
Okay.
Because my colleagues on the TV show misrepresent me. And now you, my son, and the producers of the podcast are misrepresenting me. I have not said I am not completely in on the Bills yet. I have simply said I do not think they should be anointed the favorites. We have seen this in the NFL before, where there are 2 great teams in a conference. Two examples stick out to me. And in order for the little brother team to be considered the favorite, they've got to go beat the big brother. So, Cowboys, Niners in the 90s. They were the 2 best teams by far. The Cowboys repeatedly beat them in the playoffs in the early 90s. Now, 1994, the Niners got them. But a couple things happened. One is the Cowboys lost their coach. The other is Deion Sanders went to the San Francisco 49ers. So you can say, Von Miller went to the Bills. I don't look at that as quite the same jump. Deion was still the single best corner in football. But even when that happened, and the Niners did get him that year, they were not throughout the season. It's like, oh, Cowboys done. It's the Niners' time. I'm going to give you another example. Patriots Colts in the early 2000s. The Patriots would kick their teeth in the playoffs, and the Colts eventually got theirs. And so more on that in a moment. Colts eventually got over the hump and beat them. Great second half comeback. I think it was 21-3 or 20-3 at halftime. But the Patriots are going to beat them for the third straight playoffs. And then Peyton came all the way back the year Peyton won his first Super Bowl. But throughout the year, no one was anointing the Colts because they hadn't beat the Patriots yet. I am not sitting here saying the Bills are not good. I am not sitting here doubting Josh Allen as I did last year when I called him roller coaster Josh Allen. What I am saying is that the Chiefs, in my opinion, have earned the right to be AFC favorites until proven otherwise. Now, I understand the Bengals beat them but in last year's playoffs, but nobody's picking the Bengals over the Chiefs right now. They're picking the Bills. 2 years ago, when the Chiefs were defending Super Bowl champions, I had to listen, got to watch out for the Bills. And the Chiefs kicked their teeth in the AFC Championship game. Last year, when the Chiefs have been to back-to-back Super Bowls, won the conference 2 years in a row, I had to hear, better watch out for the Bills. And they couldn't hold a 3-point lead for 13 seconds. And then in overtime, they couldn't get a stop. And now, when the Chiefs are 2-0, Mahomes has played perfect football, at least statistically. I understand he had a few could-have-been interceptions. More on that in a moment.
Right.
I got to listen to the Bills are head and shoulders better than everybody. Why?
So you're just saying they have to beat the Chiefs first.
They got to beat the Chiefs. You got it.
And you're acknowledging that they're a great football team.
I think they're the second or third best team in football. We mentioned Mayweather-McGregor. In boxing, if there were two awesome heavyweights and they fought the first time and the champ knocked him out in 6 rounds, they fought a second time and it was real close. It went to the cards, but the champ won a unanimous decision. There would be nothing the number one contender should be able to do before the third fight to be considered better until he beats the champ. Beat the champ, Buffalo. That's all I'm saying.
Wait,
also,
so when are they playing?
well, they play in week 6, I think, but they beat them in the regular season last year. I don't care about that. You got to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. You just have to. Second of all, I got a couple other things on this. One is everyone's like, oh my God, Buffalo's been so impressive, and they have. They've blown out 2 teams.
Yeah.
I would argue, while the Chiefs have not been as dominant from a margin perspective, the Chiefs have played the tougher
Better
competition.
Team. Yeah.
And what everyone is saying is, Buffalo blew out the defending Super Bowl champion Rams and the number 1 seed from last year, Titans. All right, let's talk about that for a
Titans
moment.
are clearly
The Titans are
not
trash.
Right.
They are trash. Don't give me that they were the number 1 seed last year.
Yeah.
And I believe the Chargers are better than the Rams. But at the very least, that's close.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the Cardinals are better than the Titans,
right,
who are terrible. So there's that. And then the other thing that frustrates me is this. Josh Allen week 1. And by the way, the Bills, they've been dominant. They were dominating against the Titans, and they were dominant in the second half against the Rams. That game was 10-10 at halftime against the Rams. But neither here nor there. Josh Allen week 1 throws 2 picks. The first one, it bounced off the receiver's chest. And I got Chris Collinsworth saying, we need to make a new category. NHFs, not his fault interceptions. Week 2, Mahomes almost throws a pick, or a couple actually. And I'm hearing people, those really should. So Mahomes non-picks, folks want to call picks. Josh Allen's actual picks, folks take them off the board. The week 1, I heard Collinsworth say, try to create a new stat category for him. And I like Collinsworth a lot. Week 2, Orlovsky, right before Josh Allen threw the strike, I think it was to Stephon Diggs for like 50 yards down the middle. He overthrew the fullback on a wheel route down the sideline. And Orlovsky said, and I quote, "That might be the greatest incomplete pass I've ever seen." Like, can we all just take a breath? That's all. So
He's him.
It's not that I'm a Bills hater. It's that the entirety of my media colleagues are crowning the Bills at 20-0 already. And I'm not ready to do it. Next.
We'll see in week 6.
Yeah.
The Eagles destroyed the Vikings. Sadly for you.
I got this one wrong too.
Jalen Hurts played amazingly, though. He's 10-1 to win the MVP.
Yep.
You say the
10 just so you know,
10-1 to
10
win
to 1.
MVP.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. You say the Eagles are going to win the division by 3 games.
Yep.
Is there a scenario where your 25th best quarterback is winning MVP?
Okay, so a few things. 6 weeks ago on the spot, you guys asked me about the Eagles. I'm like, calm down. They're not going to win the division with that quarterback.
Right.
Then Dallas dealt with the injuries. I dug into it a little bit more. And in my official preseason predictions, I had the Eagles winning the division by a game.
Right.
Then Dallas looked as horrible as they did in week 1. And again, listen, I didn't have a great gambling weekend. I understand that. And Philly has looked awesome.
Right.
And so I do believe Dallas is going to win Philly's going to win the division. And I said by 3 games because I think Philly looks like an 11-win team. And I don't think Dallas or the Giants, who play each other this weekend. And by the way, the Giants after this weekend, they get the Bears. Giants could be 4-0. Even if they get to 4-0, they're not good. They are not a good team. They still employ Daniel Jones. So I don't believe either of those teams are going to be above 500. What is interesting for Philly is, did I underrate Jalen Hurts? I'm open to that possibility. Thus far, it looks like I did. I need to see a little bit more. What they did on Monday night was super impressive. He played a really good game against a team that I believe is a good team. And right now, there is a spot where, to my eyes, the Eagles are head and shoulders better than every other team in the NFC East. And so, can he win MVP? I can't say it's impossible. It would be shocking to me if he keeps up this level of play. Keeps up this level of play, he can win MVP.
Right.
Can they make the Super Bowl? I'm not going to dismiss it as a possibility because the Niners now have a ceiling because Jimmy's their quarterback. The Rams have been shaky the whole time. The Packers have been shaky. The Bucs offense isn't on track. It's hard to find that NFC juggernaut.
Can I ask a question real quick? So you say the Niners have a ceiling because they have Jimmy G as quarterback. This might be getting off topic a little bit.
You're right.
But when they had Trey Lance, they didn't have a ceiling. They were, because I feel like you said that there was your Super Bowl team.
Yes, correct. They were. Yes.
And now with Jimmy G.
With Jimmy G, they are more likely to be good right now. But Jimmy G's played 6 career playoff games, has played poorly in all 6.
Okay.
Has never outplayed the opposing team's quarterback in a single playoff game. When they made the Super Bowl, they had a dominant defense. Now they have a very good defense. They lost some personnel from the defensive year. So Jimmy G, Trey Lance, way, way lower floor than Jimmy G. By the end of the season, I felt a higher ceiling.
Okay.
Jimmy G, we know what we're getting.
Right. I see.
And
more of a developed player.
Right. And so it's not that I'm guaranteeing Trey Lance is going to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But the unknown, when the known is, I've tried to use this example. The example I used with Colin was this. If you were in a race, New York to LA, and you've been in that race every year for the last 5 years, and you've driven the same car, and every single time that car, whether you're winning the race, middle of the pack, wherever it is, right around Phoenix, craps out. Can't get there. And I say year 6, take that same car, or there's this sports car I built. I think can win the race. It also might crap out before you get to Kansas City. Which would you choose? The one that you know is reliable, but you have half decade of evidence can't get you to the finish line, or the unknown,
nice
where
analogy.
it might blow up, before you even get to Philadelphia, or you could win the race. I would argue option B, take the unknown. And so that's I think the Niners, because the NFC is actually even a little worse than I had thought it was going to be, could still make the Super Bowl. We'll see. But I think their ultimate ceiling went down with Jimmy Garoppolo being their quarterback. All right, next.
Robert Sarver is looking to sell the Suns and Mercury.
Yeah.
Sarver is known as one of the worst owners in professional sports history.
Yep.
But Phoenix always attracts free agent interest for some reason.
Yeah.
If he sells the team to somebody competent, could this change the trajectory of their where are we at?
The landscape.
The NBA landscape?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
It's not just that he's a terrible guy. And we've talked Sarver before. LeBron, the NBA PA, Chris Paul, and others put pressure on him to sell. Because the NBA said 1-year suspension, $10 million.
Right.
LeBron came out and said the league got it wrong. Other guys and Sarver got shamed enough, and he's going to walk away with a few $1 billion. Folks are going to be like, he's getting canceled. Bought the team for less than $500 million. Ran it terribly, incredibly cheaply. Sexually harassed men and women, allegedly. Used the N-word repeatedly, allegedly. Was just a misogynistic, racist creep, allegedly. And now he's going to walk away, with like $3 billion. I think he'll be okay. But they're talking about Bezos might want to buy it. Or Larry Ellison, the Oracle guy. Having, even by rich guy standards, one of the richest guys buy a team, absolutely can change the landscape. It's not just you change the organizational culture. It's that you also, everything will be nicer. Facilities will be nicer. You're not going to worry about the luxury tax. In the early 2000s, mid-2000s, when the Suns were right on the cusp, kept making the Western Conference Finals with Steve Nash. Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, Joe Johnson was there briefly, Sean Marion. They were this close to making the finals. Sarver sold a first-round pick. Didn't trade it. Sold it. Like a team was like, I'll give you a few $1 million for your first-round pick. He's like, done.
Wow.
Yeah. So absolutely this could change the landscape of the league. Having this type of money come into a team that's notoriously cheap, won't pay the luxury tax. They got in that pissing match with DeAndre Ayton last summer because of this. 100%. And so I find it really interesting. It also, sidebar, is going, so the Clippers sold, but they're in LA. Ballmer overpaid. And you know what I mean? That was after Sterling got forced out, right?
Right.
It also is going to be an interesting litmus test for how much money Bron and his group are going to need when they want to buy a team.
Yeah.
And are they going to have to buy a team, or is the NBA going to expand to Vegas and Seattle, and you just have to pay like a franchise fee? Because as rich as Bron is, he doesn't have multiples of billions. So I know he could have a group around it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Other people, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see what this team sells for. Very interesting. All right. I want to talk about the Favre thing. DeMonte's going to set it up in a moment. My guess is we're going to spend about 5 minutes on it. I don't think what I'm going to say on the Favre thing is political at all. But if you're here just for the sports, come back for the top of the B block and we're going to talk Aaron Judge. Now, DeMonte, go ahead, but it's going to be about 5 minutes would be my guess. We're going to go overtime again. My apologies. Go ahead, set me up.
You cut some things out of the rundown.
Yeah.
And the top of the A's or the bottom of the A's, should I say,
Yeah.
to talk about Favre. So what is it that you got to say about him? Are you talking about how it's not getting any coverage?
Well, so here's the thing. There's 2 points I want to make here. One is about the media, and the other is about Favre and what these folks did. There's been a lot of Twitter chatter that, Mike Vick and the dogfighting thing was A1 news on all the shows, on all the networks for months.
Right.
And it seems like Shannon Sharp and I are the only people in sports media that give a shit about this Favre story. Does that feel hypocritical? The answer to that is yes and no. The yes is, listen, Favre is one of the greatest football players ever. he is alleged, and it's very compelling. Shout out to the Mississippi Free Press, which has done a wonderful job covering this story, to have helped misallocate funds. And everyone's calling it, welfare money. It's really TANF money, which, if you know what that stands for, it really zeroes in on how awful and amoral this is. TANF stands for Tax Assistance for Needy Families. The shorthand for that is welfare. That money being redirected, upwards of $6 million, some in Favre's pocket, and a lot of it so his daughter at Southern Miss can get a fancy volleyball stadium and he can get credit for it. That $6 million is just part of a $77 million overall TANF money misallocated in Mississippi, the poorest state in the country. Okay, that's the general strokes of it. The reason I'm not going to crush the media as much as others is, the more salacious stories will always get more headlines. And dogfighting and
it's almost boring.
This story is almost boring. Just even me explaining what TANF is, the money and the misallocation, it's a little complex and a little boring and not as salacious. So I wouldn't have expected it to get quite the coverage the dogfighting thing did. But it shouldn't be 100-1.
Right.
It shouldn't be this big of a discrepancy, especially because Favre, for a period of time, was the single most famous football player in the world. He's still one of the most popular football players ever. So does it feel like he's getting protected? Does it feel like some of the media folks are not as apt to jump on this story? Does it feel like there's assuredly a bit of a racial component to it? Yes, all of those things are true. That is not what is particularly galling to me, however. And this is the part that I want us to put on social. Because what is most galling to me about the Favre story is not just the media hypocrisy or the lack of coverage or the lack of interest. It's that the worst case scenario for Favre is, my guess is he does actual jail time and it's less than 18 months. This is a multi-million-dollar fraud. And where the media consistently misses the boat is how many stories have I had to read since the pandemic or see on the news about the plague of shoplifting across this country? I can't go to the CVS down the street here. I went there the other day. Every single item. Yeah, I got to call someone over to unlock because they have done a really good job of getting that out in the media that, oh my goodness gracious, we're dying on the vine here because people are stealing razors and soap. By the way, fun fact, that company that I just mentioned, I looked it up this morning, the entire list of American companies with more revenue last year than them. Walmart, Amazon, Apple. They're number 4. $300 and some billion in revenue. Around $10 billion in profit. And consistently, the media tries to convince us that the people going in our pocket are the poorest, most desperate people. Now, I don't have any tolerance either for when you see like almost the flash mobs of folks going into the Gucci store, the Louis Vuitton store, and 40 folks come in, steal stuff, and run out. That's just theft. That's just criminals. The folks that out of usually some level of desperation are trying to slip a few personal hygiene products in their pocket, and we all get that media coverage. It's wall to wall. An epidemic of shoplifting. This is over $75 million of Mississippians' own money. It is taxpayer money that is taken out of their checks to try to help the poorest, most desperate people. And allegedly, the goddamn governor, a nonprofit, the most famous Mississippian maybe ever, are all so casual about the theft, they're texting about it. They're breaking the Stringer Bell rule. They're taking notes on a criminal conspiracy because they know that nobody really cares. And that even if they are caught red-handed, it's not going to be that covered. That's the infuriating part. That's the part where we all got to get our minds right. We have been tricked so long that the poor person going in our left pocket, stealing a couple dollars is the problem. And the rich person and the corrupt politicians and the systems in place going in our right pocket for $100, that's just America. It's just the cost of doing business. It's maddening. And so, yeah, I do think it should get more coverage, of course. But what I would rather happen is us be less, hyperventilate a little bit less about the things the most desperate people in our society do to get by, some of whom might not be shoplifting if their welfare checks came through when they're struggling, instead of going to build a volleyball stadium so Brett Favre can say, oh, look at what a good guy I am. Talk Aaron Judge's 60th home run next. All right, welcome back in. What's Right, Nick Wright, episode number 72. Let's get right into it. DeMonte, we went overtime once again in the A block. Now, I know you guys are going to want to blame me, but I said on the previous show, maybe we need to lengthen the clock on the A block. Nobody listened to me on it, so we went overtime. Not my fault, but, I'm going to blame others for my own inaction. All right, go ahead. What are we starting with?
We're breaking tradition, and we're talking a little baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, Aaron Judge tied Babe Ruth with his 60th home run of the season.
Yeah. With
15 games left to play, he's bound to hit 61.
Yep.
After Maris, Judge only has cheaters ahead of him in the all-time list.
Yep.
Should Judge be considered the all-time leader in home runs when he passes Maris, or do juicers deserve their place in the record books?
All right, he's not. Listen, ahead of him will be 4 Sammy Sosa seasons or 3 Sammy Sosa seasons, couple McGuire seasons, and Bonds is 73. Okay? And I think he's, maybe 4 Sosa seasons, 1 McGuire season, 1 Bonds season, whatever it is. Right now, Maris is 7th. And when Judge passes him, Judge will be 7th. The single season home run record is Barry Bonds. It's 73. Steroids or no steroids, that's the record. However, one could make the argument this season is more impressive. And I'm not even talking steroids. What I'm talking about is the second place on home runs is at 40. Judge is at 60. Nobody has had that type of gap between first and second place in home runs since Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth had back-to-back seasons where he had 35 more home runs than second place, 1920 and 1921. He had 4 seasons where he was at least 20 plus ahead of the next best guy. The fact that when Bonds hit 73, Sosa hit in the mid-60s. When McGuire hit 70, Sosa hit 66. We've never had anything like this in modern baseball history where one guy is so head and shoulders above everybody else. You add to it that as of recording, he's on track to win the Triple Crown, meaning lead the league in home runs, RBIs, and batting average. You add to that his team is staying afloat, not only staying afloat, but going to win the division thanks to him because the rest of the team hasn't played well in months. This is one of the most impressive seasons in baseball history. You add to that the fact that he turned down $230 million this offseason because he bet on himself that he was going to have a monster year, and he's having one of the greatest seasons ever. And at 30 years old, he's probably going to get north of $400 million. All those things put together, it's just one of the greatest years in modern baseball history. But that doesn't mean that he's the record holder, And I understand there's cheating and not cheating, so it's kind of apples to oranges. But all things considered, I think Kobe's 81 was more impressive than Wilt's 100. But Wilt's 100 is the record and will remain the record.
Okay.
And so, no, I'm not taking Bonds out of the record books. But what I will say, what is cool, is Sosa, Bonds, and
Kind of different. You
what?
said Wilt Chamberlain's 100 will always be like the record, and
Yeah.
Barry Bonds is
Yeah.
will always. I think they're kind of different.
Well, of course they're different because people look at Bonds as he got there by cheating. My point is, Kobe's 81, the degree of difficulty was higher than Wilt's 100. The context was different. It seems more impossible than Wilt's 100 because of who he was playing, the way that game was played, the fact that they were then scheming at the end just to get him 100 points, all of this stuff. I just think Kobe's 81 is a more impressive feat, but the record is Wilt. I think Judge's in today's baseball, 60, whatever he ends with 4, is more impressive than Bond's 73 at the height of the steroid era when a lot of guys were hitting 60 plus. But it's still not the record. But with that said, what I was trying to say there is it is arguably more impressive, and the context of it makes it unforgettable. And where he's fortunate is Bonds, Sosa, and McGuire all played in the National League. So he will have by himself, maybe for decades, the American League record. Because the American League record has been Maris at 61, Ruth at 60. And so I'll have the Yankee record and the American League record maybe for the rest of my life, certainly for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So he has his own record. It's not the single season record. It might be more impressive than the single season home run total. Also, Pujols might get 700, which is a whole nother thing that is just was unbelievable prior to the year, and I think he's going to get it. All right, next, what game are we playing?
Baseball. All right, it's time to play all in or fold.
Let me just ask you before we play the game. Do you prefer the baseball talk or the tennis corner?
I definitely prefer the baseball talk.
Wow, that's an upset. Okay, next.
The Ravens had an epic collapse on Sunday.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Lamar was still looking good. You've been back in Baltimore very heavily in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
All in or fold, the Ravens will be the number one seed in the AFC.
I'm going to fold that.
Folding.
Already so banged up. I still think they'll win the division. I still think they're a super dangerous team. And they absolutely could be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. But they got to get healthy. Last year, the injuries killed them. This year, what happened in that Miami game is 2 of their top corners were out. They're playing 2 rookie 4th rounders at corner. They're also playing a rookie safety, and Tyreek Hill's running wide open. Yeah. So, and to get the 1 seed, you can't give away a 35-21 lead. So I'm still very high on the Ravens. The injuries, or 35-14 lead, I should say. The injuries concern me, but now I don't think that they're going to be able to go 13-4 the way, and at 13-4 at a minimum is what it's going to take to be the 1 seed. So I'm going to fold that. Next.
All right, so the Packers beat up on the Bears. Minnesota looked terrible Monday night, but the Lions are the 2nd highest scoring team in the NFL right now. All in or fold, the Packers will win the NFC North title.
I'm going to go all in on that. I picked it before the year.
Okay.
I don't think the Packers have looked very good, but I think they will improve. I also think they're going to add a receiver. Keep your eyes out. If Kenny Golladay and the Giants, that relationship continues to fray, keep your eyes out for Odell. I think they need to add a receiver. The Vikings have this Kirk Cousins ceiling, and they were so underwhelming on Monday night. It's just really hard to believe that they are going to win 12 games like I think it's going to take. I think they're a playoff team, but I absolutely still like the Packers in the North. Next.
All right, the Raiders are one of 4 0-2 teams.
Yeah.
They collapsed last week as well. Josh McDaniels wasn't successful in Denver, and it doesn't look great so far.
Yep.
All in or fold, Josh McDaniels will be the Raiders coach next year.
I'm all in on that. Josh McDaniels will be the Raiders coach next year. There's no chance they're firing him after 1 year. First of all, Mark Davis, the Raiders owner, he is, by NFL ownership standards, poor. He is I think probably has the least money of any owner. These coach contracts are guaranteed. So you don't want to pay out. They're already they're fighting Gruden in court to not pay him out. That's fine. I also don't know. McDaniels might end up doing a good job. Week 1, they lost to the Chargers, but it was a 1-possession game. They had the ball. Derek Carr he finished the game with 4 turnovers. Week 2, that was an unforgivable collapse. I don't think they're a playoff team. I never thought they were a playoff team, but I do think that we are in a spot where they're not going to move on from him after 1 year. It's just not going to happen. So I'm all in. He'll be their coach next season. Next.
All right. Believe it or not, the Dolphins are one of only 6 teams to still be undefeated. All in or fold, the Dolphins will win a playoff game.
Oh, that's interesting. So let's think about this.
Just think about their quarterback, man.
No, I know, but it was could they make the playoffs? Yes. Could they win the division, though? No. So that means no matter what their record is, they're on the road in week 1. Okay? So or week 1 of the playoffs. So let's just say, best case scenario for the Dolphins, right? The best case scenario for the Dolphins is that they get the number 1 wild card, so they're the 5 seed. So they would be going on the road to the worst division winner. That's probably going to come out of the AFC South. AFC South winner, at this point, you guys know I was high on Indy and Jacksonville. I think it's probably Jacksonville.
Jacksonville? Oh, there you
go. Let me read the question again. The Dolphins will win a playoff game. I'm going to fold that.
Okay.
If it was could win a playoff game, I'm open to that. I don't trust Tua, but I like their coach. I like their overall roster and the path of being the 5 seed. Do I really believe in Tua to win a road playoff game? I don't, and I'm not even certain they're making the playoffs. But we can't dismiss what they've done as meaningless. We can't. As limited as Tua is, he has crazy weapons around him. We can't dismiss it as meaningless. So I'm gonna fold that I wouldn't bet them right now to win a playoff game. Let me check real quick what their odds are right now to make the playoffs. Right now, via our friends at Fox Bet, I'm clicking on it. 1 second. Make playoffs. Miami is minus 190 to make the playoffs. So they're saying they've got about a 60% chance to make the playoffs. That feels a little strong. Let's think about this for a second. Chiefs and Chargers are going to make it. Let's call it one team out of the AFC South. Okay. The Ravens out of the North. Even if you put the Bengals in 2, which I would, that still lead, and the Bills, there's still one open spot. So do you believe Denver or the Raiders are turning it around? No. Do you believe we're going to have 2 AFC South teams? Probably not. Do we believe there's going to be 3 AFC North teams? That loss for Cleveland really hurt them. So, yeah, I guess I see why they're favorites to make the playoffs, so they could win a playoff game, but I'm not picking them to win a playoff game. Okay. All right, last.
All right, well, the Giants are 2-0, and their next 2 games are at home against Cooper Rush's Cowboys and the Bears. They could easily be 4-0. All in or fold, the Giants are making the playoffs.
Fold.
Yeah.
Fold.
There we go.
I think they might get to 4-0. They're not making the playoffs. I don't want to talk anymore about the Giants. They're uninteresting. They bore me. I'm happy for Dable. I like Saquon, but
when they're 4-0, will you still be able to say they're uninteresting? They're boring?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I will. I'm predicting they go 4-0.
What if they're 4-0 and the Chiefs are 3-1?
Won't matter.
Won't matter.
I'm predicting they go 4-0, and I'm predicting they miss the playoffs. Predicting both of those. While recording, we actually now do have some breaking news on Ime Udoka. Likely suspended for the entire season. All right, we'll talk about that to wrap the show. That's next. What's right? All right, welcome back in. Final segment, What's Right, Nick Wright podcast YouTube show. Episode 72, Gambling Show, episode 73, coming out Friday. Going to be off television the next few days because we have soccer in the afternoon window on FS1 and World Cup's coming up, which I'm so excited about. Oh, I just realized, Demonze, you think you didn't like the baseball talk. You know you didn't like the tennis talk. Wait till you get to Nick Wright soccer fan. Oh, you don't know this side of me.
You've been to one soccer game.
I'm sorry?
Been to a soccer game before? You've been to like one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just used to go to dozens of Sporting KC games, first of all. Second of all.
Dozens?
Yeah, dozens. I used to go quite a bit. Partial season ticket holder, my friend. That's first of all.
Season
Second of all, I love international soccer. Love it. You think I'm playing all those hours of FIFA for just enjoyment?
God,
it's also for educational purposes. So that's coming up on the show a few weeks from now. But so at the top of the show, I said there's this, late last night, Woj tweeted that Ime Udoka, the coach of your team, was facing a possible team suspension. And then then he got that it was for a consensual relationship with a team employee, staffer. Woj just tweeted, and I just want to read the tweet verbatim. And I said we didn't want to talk about it because we don't have enough information. And I didn't want to talk about what it meant for the Celtics because it would feel crass if he was accused of doing something really awful. The tweet from Woj is, Boston Celtics coach Ime Udoka is likely facing a suspension for the entire season for his role in a consensual relationship with a female staff member, sources tell ESPN. A formal announcement is expected as soon as today. Assistant coach Joe Mazzulla is likely to become Boston's interim coach for the season, sources tell ESPN. Remember, Danny Ainge hired away Will Hardy, his number one assistant, to be coach of the Jazz. That's now obviously something Celtics are regretting. I don't want to... We don't have enough information to really discuss this. And I know it's your team, but I don't want to talk about it from a basketball perspective, and I don't even want to put you in a position to say anything about it because in something like this, we want to be very, very careful with what we say. But what I do feel comfortable saying is this. A season-long suspension for arguably the face of your franchise and knowing it's going to be public for what Woj is describing as a consensual relationship raises a lot of red flags to me about what's the real details of this story. And listen, I understand Udoka is, is in a very public relationship with the famous actress Nia Long.
Yeah.
But something feels amiss here. And so I don't know what to do with it. I don't feel comfortable talking about what it means for the Celtics until we have more information on it. But there's got to be another piece to this, and I don't even want to speculate what that piece could be because right now this square doesn't circle. And so Ime Udoka suspended for the year for what is currently being reported as, and I'll just read the tweet once again verbatim from Woj, a consensual relationship with a female staff member. That is a shocking development. It will have real repercussions across the league from an on-court standpoint. A lot of people think the Celtics are the favorites. He obviously did a great job last year. And my guess is, not by the time we do the gambling show, but by the time we're on the air next week, there will be more information here, and maybe this will crystallize a bit. But listen, we try to have fun in the final segment of the show, but this is breaking news as we're recording. So there's news. Ime Udoka suspended for the season. This was episode 72. We'll be back tomorrow with the gambling show and then a normal show on Monday or Tuesday. By the way, that's one other thing. We might be out on Monday. It might be Tuesday because I'm not on television Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Might take a little, little me time. You know what I mean? A little trip to the spa. And by the spa, I mean a casino to be named later. We'll figure that out. We'll talk to you soon. What's right? Hey, thanks for watching. Smash or just lightly tap that subscribe button. It all works the same. To get more from the show, and make sure you click. Why don't you want to mash the bell too, guys? Or just, lightly tap the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just hit the link in the description below.